Let us start with something called as life cycle. We have seen directives and we have seen components, right? So this is your batch, right? Angular basic. So directives, till directives we have seen. And at the time of directives, we have seen that at the time of directives, what we have seen? Components are nothing but the directives, right? With template. The exact definition of a component is a directive, but with what? Template. Right. And how many types of directives are there? 3. Which one? Huh? Mm-hmm. Behavior. What's the name? Attribute directives. There are three types of the directives. One who comes with their own template, who fits in their own template. Second one, structural, who change the DOM structure or the page structure. Third, who change the behavior or the appearance of the component or element, right? But everything is a directive in Angular. Everything is what? Directive. Directive definition we have seen enhancement of the HTML. Some code snippet which will enhance the capabilities of the HTML, like for loop. HTML will never have for loop, but directive gives you, right? Star ng for, right? If condition. HTML is not having if condition, but who gives you? Star ng if. What's that? Directive. Behind the star ng if there is a little code, right? Behind this there is a little code. Okay, then we have created our own directive. Do we have created our own directive? Own directive? Custom directive? Password directive, we were doing something, right? Then you said it's little bit too much now. Okay, fine. So we'll continue with this first. Let's wind up with the custom attribute directive. Custom attribute directive. So it is that directive, you can say, it is that directive which will work with the password. I just want to check the length of password, but by means of directive. Getting that? By means of what? Directive. Now, for creating directive, we have used ng, g and d. ng, g and d. That will create the directive for you. The directive is a TypeScript class which has been decorated with add directive decorator. If I remove this, this is a plain class, nothing fancy in this. But if I add this, it is going to add some things into this at the runtime, build time, or at the time of compilation. It is going to add some code into this thing. Okay, so directive, password directive. So what password directive is going to do? Let's get some detail about this. Very first thing, you can reach to the directive by means of two things. The first way you can see ELRF, element ref. Here you can go and element ref. It will take you to the actual element, HTML element. Now see, in the constructor I'll go, let me make it private, so it is in the class scope only. So this is a field at the class level. So here I can say this dot ELRef dot native element. Can you see? The element on which you have attached this directive. I just say pass. Selector of my directive would be what? Pass. Selector would be just pass. So let me print first console dot log and your native element. And in the app component HTML, let us have one input box. So here I can have dot row dot colmd and the 12, and here you can have input type, sorry, input type is equals to what? Text. And onto this text I can attach what? Hash, sorry, just pass, or that's it, pass. Pass is not the local reference. Pass is a custom directive or a selector of the custom directive you have created. It is the selector of the custom directive that you have created. You can see pass. Now, this element ref will start pointing, this EL ref will start pointing to whom? This input box. Let us try to print this and let us try to run this code. So here you can open it in the containing folder and your Angular basic, right? Open in the terminal and here you can say npm start -- project. Which project? Directives. Hit the enter. And it is serving the directives. It is serving the directives. Okay. Now, let us see. Localhost 4200. Still it is serving. Okay. See now, info danger. And this is your input box that we have created. Just inspect it and console it. Can you see? This is the output of that particular console. Right? Can you see? It is from the file password directive.ts. You are in the debug mode. That's why you see all these file names. Once you will go in the live mode, right? These files cannot be presented like this. All is going to create one main.bundle.js file. One bundle is there. In one JS, everything would be there. But that is not the concern. We'll see at the time of building the project. So if you can see this, input type text and hash, not hash, what you have attached, just you have attached what you can say, pass. And if you want to reach to that particular host element, right, in the directive class, if you want to reach to the host element, element ref is a one thing. Well, if you have access to the native element, right, if you have access to the native element, you can do lot many things. Dot style dot border is equals to 1px solid and the red. Element ref dot native element dot style dot border is equal to this. Can you see? This is getting bordered. It is getting what? Bordered. Which means that you can reach to the particular element, or if you want to do the DOM manipulation, which is not recommended in Angular, use the directives like this. If you want to manipulate the DOM, you are going to do something like this, which is not recommended by Angular principles. DOM needs to be avoided 100%. That is the fundamental of the Angular. That is why of the Angular. First why you will use the Angular. To get away from the DOM manipulation. But still, in some cases, if you want to do, you need to do by means of such thing. See, this is completely DOM manipulation. You can reach to any element. If you have reached to the element, you can do anything.
You can change the content also in that.
Yeah, anything. Inner HTML.
Yeah, just equals to the value.
Value, yeah. You can do anything.
That is the old pattern.
Old, yeah. Still sometimes, very rarely you need to do the DOM manipulation. You can use this. Right, now see, private This is not recommended method. Now if you want to do the DOM manipulation, what is the recommended method? I'll show you. Renderer class. Renderer 2. So if you want to do this thing, kindly do in this way. We'll discuss renderer class in a moment. This dot renderer dot set style. Right. First parameter you need to pass on which element you need to apply the style. On this element I need to apply the style. Which style you need to apply? Border. What would be the value? 1px solid red. Right. So what I'll do, let me comment it out and you can check it. Same resultant operation is same. Right. Now what is the renderer class? Just go to the class and read the extend this base class to implement the custom rendering. By default, Angular renders a template into the DOM. You can use the custom rendering to intercept the rendering calls or to render something other than DOM. Now, what is other than DOM? Angular is not only used for rendering on the browsers. Angular can be used to render the views of the mobile application. I'll show you one framework called as native script. Native script. Native script creating native iOS and Android app with the JS or with the Angular. Can you say open source framework for building truly native mobile applications with Angular, Vue.js, TypeScript or the JS? In this case, these applications won't open in a browser. Underlying native framework is Android is having Vue system. Vue. Vue is a base element of the Android's, what we can say, UI hierarchy. Vue is a class in Android. Right. So mobile applications need to be rendered in some different way. Mobile applications need to be rendered. At that time, these native script guys has used or extended this renderer2 class to render it on the mobile. That is the use of the renderer. And another way to go with the renderer is the security. They have written this. I'll show you. Is a renderer2. Now, you go to the element ref. Right here you can say, what is the element ref? A wrapper around native element inside of Vue. A wrapper around the native element inside of Vue. An element ref is backed by a renderer specific element. In the browser, this is truly a DOM element. If you talk about browser. If you talk about something else, that might be something different. See, at security concern is there. Permitting direct access to the DOM can make your application more vulnerable to the XSS attacks. What is XSS attacks? Cross-site scripting.
Cross-site scripting.
Yeah.
Through SQL injections.
SQL injections or through the
We can alter the database.
Yes, a simple way. Let me go to the codecool.com and here you can inspect it. Right, from the console you can say dollar, can you see dollar dot display none, and something might have been disappeared from the page. So from here you can access the, see, here you can access the elements and here you can access your script from the console. That will communicate with the server. Right? Cross-site scripting. This is a little example of the XSS. This is a little example of what? XSS. Not, this is typically XSS, but little example. There are lot many ways. So if you have seen the penetration testing, right? If you have heard about the ethical hacking. So ethical hacking is a top term. Under that there is a pen testing or penetration testing. Right? Under that you will get to know all these things. How to hack typical website. Right. Fine, but many approaches are there to reach to your data source, right? One of them is a cross-site scripting. Fine. So if you allow access directly to the native element, XSS is a problem. And that's why you need to work with the renderers, right? Another thing why you will work with the renderers is for the custom rendering. One is a security and another is what? Custom rendering, right? For these two things you need to do that. Okay. Now we have seen the element ref, we have seen the renderer too, right? By means of element ref we have changed the style, by means of renderer we have changed the style. Now another thing, or more sophisticated or more elegant way to work with the directives is a host listener and the host binding classes. Getting that? Now I'll comment out this as well, and I can have BRD is of type string. One variable is there. Now try to imagine the property binding. Try to imagine what is a property binding? A binding of one variable with the property. Getting that? But here it is not a component, or it is a component but not a direct component, right? So you cannot use this BRD directly anywhere over here. How you'll use BRD over here? Not possible. If you try to do something like this, so I want to do something like this, style dot border, right, is equals to BRD. But BRD is not in the context of the, what you can say, directive class, component class. It is inside the directive pass. I want to do same thing, right? We have done this thing before. Property binding, binding with the styles, binding with the attributes, binding with the classes, right? We have done this thing, but now I want to do same thing by means of, what you can say, directives. Same thing. So how do you do that? If you need tea, all of you, can you please tell that guy? He's outside. Okay. So BRD. Now on this BRD variable, I'm going to attach one, what you can say, decorator called as at host binding. If you want to achieve the property binding, right? And which property you need to bind with. So here you can say style dot border. So value of this BRD would be the value of your border style. Getting that? And what I'll do, I'll go here and here I can say this dot BRD is equals to 1px solid and the red. Cool. See, same effect is there. Right? Same effect is there. And more elegant approach. Getting that? Any concern?
Basically, we are achieving the
Property binding.
host binding.
Ha. But because you are in the directive.
Okay.
If you are in the directive says that, and this is the custom attribute directive. Attribute directive says that I am going to work only on the behavior and the appearance. Right? And for changing that, you need to do something like this, or you need to do this thing. You opt one thing. This is not really recommended.
But
This one.
DOM manipulation.
First one is a DOM manipulation. Second one is not a DOM manipulation. The second one is not DOM manipulation. But this is not that sophisticated. This is an extremely sophisticated way to work with the bindings and the variables. host binding, property binding. If directives want to access some of the properties of the host element, this is how it can be done, right? Now if directive wants to communicate with, what you can say, some of the events, thank you, आहेत ना चहा, हे घ्या ना, तुम्ही घ्या, देईल मला ते. किती लागतील तुला? पीत नाहीस? मग काय होते? दे उसको भी. हाँ? हाँ, क्यों? So this is the most elegant way of working with binding, host binding, anything. You can class dot also, attr dot also, you can communicate with this, right? Now likewise there is a chance in the directive to have a property binding, right? There is a chance for event binding also. See now, and what we will do, on key up, I want to communicate with the function called as keys. I'll just keys function, and at host listener, which event? Key up is the event. Key up is the event. See, this is the Angular specific event. If you go in a HTML event, that is a on key up. Remember that. This is specific from the Angular. So you will get a list on the Stack Overflow, how many events are, or even on the native Angular's page, you will get all the events, how many events Angular has created. Okay. Now see, now what I want to do, here, if I start entering something, right? If I start entering something, what I would like to do is that should be, what you can say, uppercase automatically. If I type something, that should be uppercase automatically. If I type something, that should be uppercase automatically. I would like to do that thing, right? Now machine is hang. All these hindrances are clear that we are on the progressive path.
So you are going to use that to uppercase method in that case.
Yeah. So I would like to get the value first. Whatever is inside that, I need to have that value. How do we get that value? Here. by using element reference. Without that,
We can declare one variable name
Uh-huh.
by using key up, like data binding,
and
and we'll declare here.
okay, any other thing? Just think about event binding. At the time of event binding, we have discussed something.
Three ways. Three ways of binding.
Okay. Now, what I want to show you is host listener event host listener dollar event. How to access the dollar event in host listener? See this. See. Something like this. Your event key up and here dollar event dot target. So you just need to add, not like this. So here you need to give a target, and this is nothing but that element. So you can go here and can you see args dollar event? We'll get complete dollar event. We'll get complete dollar event. That should be in a string, and that event is nothing but this EV. Now see, I have cleared the concept of event binding, and that's why I got to know that I can get that value whatever I have typed in a dollar event. If I ask you a question, you said take one variable, another thing, right? So try to relate with the foundations. Everything is a foundation. If there is a host listener is nothing but event binding, means there is some provision for dollar event, and dollar event will give you everything that you need. Right, let us check it now what's happening. So go here. Can you see keyboard event is coming, and in a keyboard event key is A, and if I do like this, event type is key up, dollar event dot target. Target is nothing but the, in the HTML, this is the HTML event, dollar event dot target dot value. Target means what? On which event has been fired, source, right? If you can see this, and here you can say, here you would be getting, can you see value is AVV? Getting that? Value is what? AVV. So what I want to do here, don't keep the types any explicitly, give a typical type. If you can see, what is the type here? Keyboard event is a type, right? Go here and instead of any, change it to what? Keyboard event. Make sure that if you are using a TypeScript, you are using it thoroughly. Make it 100% object oriented. Don't find the escapes, right? If you have defined the variable, either give some value or define the type, associate some type. It's a superset of JS. All the features of JS are as it is available, but TS we use for the object orientation, right? So use it thoroughly. Okay. Now I'm typing AVV or whatever it is, and console.ev is not working. Why? That should work actually. Okay, it is working. So what I want to do now, whatever I have typed, that should go automatically to the uppercase. Means to that particular element I need to bind it, right? So here you can say pass val. I need to have what? Pass val is of type string, and I'm going to bind with value at host binding, and here you can have value. Particular input box is having some value, and here you can say this dot pass val is equals to ev dot, what you can say, target dot value, target dot value. Remember that the inside target they haven't given you the value type, so you can remove from this accessing by means of dot operator and attach, what you can say, this way of accessing the object key. In a JavaScript, values can be accessed by means of dot operator or by means of this thing, right? This is JS foundations. How do you access the values of object? By means of dot operator or by means of array operator like this. Okay, let us see what happens now. Presently undefined. It's not working. So I would like to have ev dot target dot value.
Why would it be undefined? It's not finding the values.
It is coming. Dot to uppercase is a string, right? Dot to uppercase. Can you see? Hi. That is converting, that is getting converted automatically. Hi. Hello. Right? So we created custom attribute directive. What we created? Custom attribute directive. And we have seen the host listener and the ways of accessing. Right? Sometimes what happens is that I would like to have a custom input to the directive. At input is not coming from component. At input is coming from the directive actually. And that's why component is having that facility. So I can have what I can say default border I want to get. So I can attach at input over here. Add input over here, right? And we have seen if the name of the input and name of the variable is same, right? If the name of the input and name of the variable is same, then you don't need to pass anything over here. If they are different, presently what we can do, pass is my directive, right? And my variable name is what? BRD. So I'll keep variable name and what, or my input name and the directive name pass same. So what will happen? Straight away I can write like this. And here I can pass default style 3px solid red. 3px solid red. See. If in case you need to have input to the directive, what I'm saying, if in case you need to have input to the directive, you can do something like this. Now the variable name, right? What I want to do, the directive name and the input name I want to keep same. Why? So that I can directly write property binding to the directive only. Otherwise I need to have, after directive there is one more variable that is called as BRD is equals to 3px solid, which is little bit weird. Right? I want to avoid that, and that's why what I created, I have created one BRD, right? A variable, and to that variable something like this. Right? Any question on this? What I will do, I'll push the code in a moment. You can say directives attribute directive. Please go through the code in the 5 minutes. Please go. Multiple. One directive can, yeah, one directive can be applicable. Now see, this row, this solid blue, everything is same, right? But your input can be changed. It would be like this. Now removing the undefined is a improvement strategy that you need to decide. A simple if loop you need to write, or the ternary operator you need to write, and undefined will be disappeared. Right? I have pushed the code. Kindly go through it in a moment. Right? I'm stopping. Live streaming is on. If you have any question, please do ask me after looking at the code. Let us start with something called as component life cycle, right? What I'll do, component life cycle, okay? Component life cycle for Angular, not for React. See this. Lifecycle hooks. Component has a life cycle managed by Angular. Managed by what? Angular. Angular creates and renders the component along with their children, right? Checks when their data bound properties change and destroys them before removing it from the DOM. Life cycle. Getting that? Lifecycle hooks are that methods who are called by Angular on the particular events, particular some occurrences. Here you can say something like data bound property change or destroyed the component in that way. The Angular offers the lifecycle hook that provides visibility into these key movements, right? And the ability to act when they occur. Let's try to understand first. See, ng on changes is one of the lifecycle hook. Ng on init is another one. Do check is another one. After content init is another one. After content check is another one. View init, view check, and ng on destroy. 8 lifecycle methods are there, right? These are the 8 Angular lifecycle methods. They are called on particular movement, right? When ng on changes, we'll see this thing, right? By practically. But remember that if you want to implement the lifecycle hook or if you want to implement the lifecycle method, right, you need to implement one interface, right? Like this. If you can go, or let me create a separate project. Let me create separate project. Angular basic, open in terminal, ngg, tell me the command. Ngg application and name of the application. Lifecycle. Right. It will create new project in the workspace called as application. Sorry, lifecycle. Okay. So do you want to add a routing? Say no. For few days, few more days. Right. Today and tomorrow I'm going to cover the services, and on the next weekend I would be starting next weekend routing. After that forms, after that HTTP observables and pipes, which would be the end of your course. 3 more weekends from today. Right?
Weekends.
Yeah, 3 more weekends. If we don't take holidays.
Means by end of Jan.
Yeah. Okay. So I have created, just refresh it, lifecycle is there, right? And instead of running npm start, and what's that? Npm start -- project lifecycle. Lifecycle. Right, npm start -- project lifecycle. Okay. Now, lifecycle are the movements in the Angular's throughout life, right? Components life. So here you can go and let me create one component that I am going to add in the nggc, right? Nggc, and what? Name of the component, you can say life component, you can say -- flat, I can say. What is a flat? What is flat?
Already CSS that we can remove that.
What is flat? No? Do not create the folder. If you do nggc, it creates a folder, and into that folder. Deliberately I am just doing randomly, just to getting to know you are in touch or not. Right? Then there is something called as IT, and there is something called as IS. What is this?
Inline template and
Inline style. And what does that do?
They don't include
you don't need to no, it
imports
doesn't
and
create separate HTML and
CSS file.
CSS file.
Okay. Anything else you wanna say?
no.
Okay. Now project. Switching the project here. Here we are switching the project. Which project? See the command. nggc life, name of the component. Flat, do not create new folder. Right? IT, do not create separate template file. Right? Inline. IS, do not create separate style file. Right? Inline. Means whenever at component is defined, instead of template URL, just template. Instead of style URL, just styles. And there itself we provided. Right? And then project lifecycle. Hit the enter. And here, just refresh it. Can you see life component would be getting created here itself? And inline template and inline style. Right? Now see, it is life component is implementing on init. All of the lifecycle methods are wrapped inside interfaces. All of the lifecycle methods are wrapped inside interfaces. Separate interfaces are there. First, let me import it. Import on init. Here you can see. From what you can say at Angular core, and let me remove this from here. Just for your understanding purpose, I'm writing, just for your understanding purpose, I'm writing separately like this. On init. Then before this, on changes. Yeah, every interface is a different interface. Then do check. Then after, view init. After view init. After view checked. After, content. Sequence doesn't matter while importing. Right? Sequence doesn't matter while importing. But just for your understanding, I'm writing in a sequence here as well. After content checked, then on destroy. These are the lifecycle methods. Now you just have imported, you need to implement it now. Right, you need to implement it now. On init. Before that, on changes. Then on init, then do check. Then after view init, before view, content get initialized. Remember that. Now, please tell me, what do you mean by view? What do you mean by content?
View is JavaScript object
Okay.
through which we can interact,
Okay.
manipulate.
Something more is expected when you say about view and the content. What is view? What is content? These are the interview type questions. What is view and what is content?
Because rarely doesn't communicate with the DOM structure. So it converts the JS object, it interacts with that JS object.
And fine, but still not satisfying in the comparison. Right? This is a comparative question. View and the content. Just check your document for the content projection. We have understood the content projection. Do you remember? ng content. At that time we have discussed what is content and what is view. View we are discussing from the day one, but the content has been introduced at the time of projecting the third party content.
To change the inner HTML.
Huh. What is a content then, and what is a view? Do you find something?
View I know, content no.
ng content, do we have taken or not?
Yeah, but in the NG content you said us to change. Let's say we are using a dot in a HTML expression for value, so we are
Yes,
changing the
true.
value. So in that case, we are using the ng hyphen content.
ng hyphen
That
content.
is the way that Angular deals.
ng content, we have used ng content, right?
Yes.
For view is that part which is getting, view is a own property of a component. Whenever component, TypeScript and HTML gets combined, compiler creates one object that is nothing but what? View. From the template it creates one object that is nothing but the view, and that is from the template. But there is something other which is not a part of template. In a parent you have written my component, right? To my component it is having its own view. My component would be having its own view. What is a view? Which is coming from the template. But inside my component tag you can write little markup. My component start tag, my component end tag, and inside that you can write something. That is not the view. That is what the content is. Do you remember? That is what the content is. And then we have seen view child and content child, or not? View child and, let me check, we have seen this or not? I think we have seen this. View child and content child. Where is the ng content? Ops btn component. And who is a parent of this ops btn component now? So where are we? Ops btn component. The parent of ops btn component is this. And see this. See this here. Right here we have seen what? Hash para. This is view child for app component HTML, and this is a content child. If you go to the ops btn component, can you see here we have used at content child, right? And in app component HTML we have used view child to the para, and here we have discussed the difference between view and the content. Getting that? So this is a fantastic feature from the VS Code. Throughout the project it searches everything. Even Java developers can use the VS Code. Many extensions are available, open source extensions. Okay, life component. We are talking about this life component. And the question why we have covered view and the content is because this life cycle does matter, right? While in the life cycle it does matter that content get initialized before the view. Content get initialized before the view, and that's why after content init, after content checked comes before after view init and after view checked. Getting that? And here that one thing we have used, and we have made it as false. Angular 8, I said that this is the new feature of Angular 8, right? Static true and static false. It is related here in the life cycle, right? After content init, after content checked, after view init, after view checked. Okay, so let's implement one by one. After content init, after content checked, after view init, after view checked, and on destroy. And what? On destroy. Now go on. Here also sequence doesn't matter, but for your convenience I'm writing the sequence. So here you can say ng on changes. And there is one parameter ch. Simple changes, right? We'll get to know what is this. Then on it we have already implemented ng do check. Then there is a ng after content init, ng after content checked, right? Ng after view init, ng after view checked, and on destroy, ng on destroy. So error has been gone and all the methods are satisfying your interface, right? So here you can do console.log, and here I can say ch and console, sorry, what happened? Ng on changes. So I would like to show you how the methods are getting called. Ng on init, ng do check, ng after content init, sorry, ng after view in content checked, ng after view init, after view checked, and on destroy. Getting that? These many methods I have written, right? And I would like to have one input property. You can say span is of type number. Input, right? And in app component HTML, let me write it. One division is there, and into that division I can write app life, and you can provide span. In India, lifespan is 67 years, average life expectancy in India. Here you can have input type button, and value is okay, I can say, and one click is equals to btn, one function I am calling, and that is nothing but what? btn. And let me write the btn over here, and one variable would like to have is visible, is presently what? False. And I'm going to toggle this dot is vs is equals to not is vs, but that is from the class scope. This dot is vs, and here you can say, what's that? Star ng if. What is this star ng if? What is that? Star ng if? Which directive? This is a structural directive. And what it does? What it does? Show and hide what? More precise answer is expected. What it does? What kind of DOM manipulation? Sorry.
You are controlling the functionality of the that you have written the function in that.
That is the answer. Star ng if works on adding the element to the DOM or removing from the DOM. This is the only correct answer. Right? For displaying we have something different. ng class we have. Right? What to add to the DOM and what to remove to the DOM on the basis of Boolean value. Right. So if you give answers to the point in the interview, that's enough. Otherwise questions would be like this. DOM manipulation, what kind of DOM manipulation? Displaying, what kind of displaying?
We'll create more questions.
You are creating the more questions.
Also.
You are allowing interviewer to ask you more questions. To the point, be specific. If he is asking about star ng if, even don't say it is a structural directive. If you say it is a structural directive, what is structural directive?
I will show you videos. The interview time is
Huh?
interview preparation चल रहा है इसका.
Okay. Now see. No, we haven't started, right? Life cycle we have started or not? What's running exactly? Life cycle is only running. See now. If I click on the OK, can you see ng on changes has been called, ng on init has been called, ng do check has been called, component is getting added to the DOM, right? Ng after content init, after content checked, after view init, after view checked. This is getting called. Right. Now see what I will do. Let me comment it out and let me comment it out. Let me remove it. Okay. Now see, okay, on init has been called. Now on changes hasn't been called. Before this on changes has been called, right? Means life cycle has little twist. If your component is having add input or if your component is having custom property, life cycle will begin from on changes. If your component is not having custom input, life cycle will begin from on init. And ng on changes method is going to be called 2 times throughout the life cycle if it is having custom input. One before init method on changes is getting called, right? And on every single change of the input property. On every single change of the input property, your on changes would be getting called. If your component is having custom input, right? Before on init, ng changes would be getting, ng on changes would be getting called. If your component is not having at input, your life cycle will begin from what? On init. Getting that? Now, let me have, sorry, let me have change function. Let me have what? Change function. And you can say ch would be the function name that I am going to call. Ch would be the function that I am going to call, and would like to maintain one variable. Nm is equals to 0 presently. And here I can say this dot nm is equals to math.random into 255. Math.random will generate the values from 0 to 0.0 to 1.0. 255 would be the number, you can say coefficient, right? And this coefficient, till this coefficient values would be getting generated. We call it as a coefficient, right? 2x, 3x, 4x. X can be any random value, right? So generated value would be always less than 2. If x is math.random and coefficient is 2, the generated value would be always less than 2. Remember that. That's why we use the coefficients, mathematical term. This dot nm, and here you can go, sorry, instead of span already we have taken, and here you can say nm, right? And on the click of ch, nm is going to be changed. Let me add it to the DOM. Working with little delay, right? ng on changes has been called, on init has been called, do check has been called, after content init has been called. Now I would like to change it. See, after change, ng on changes is going to be called every time, and see here it will give you the previous value and the current value. Previous value was 0 and the current value is 182 point whatever it is, right? Then ng on changes, then ng do check, then ng after content init, and after check. So if you observe that all these methods are related to the check. What do you mean by check now? Check is nothing but the change detection. Every single change in the variables, right? Every single change in the variables, right, will affect all of the children to get what you can say checked. All of the children would be getting checked that is there any change with me, and this change detection policy is called as default change detection policy. There are two change detection policies. Change detection in Angular. Now this is not part of syllabus. Little bit advanced part. I don't cover it in the batches.
Is it used widely?
No. See, change detection most of the time you would be using the default strategy, right? There is another strategy called as on push. Only that much component would be getting checked. What I want to do, 10 children are there and only parent is there. On change of the parent, I don't want children to be getting checked, which is a time consuming. If 50 children are there, everything is going to be check. And a single variable change in the parent, right? So at that time, you will make change detection strategy. You'll make change detection strategy to the app component. You can go here, change detection, and here you can say change detection strategy dot default or on push. Can you see on push what they are saying? Automatic change detection is deactivated until reactivated by the strategy default. Change detection can still be explicitly invoked. This strategy applies to all child directives and cannot be overridden. By default is what? Default 1. In which change detection automatically explicitly detected. So what is this? If one single variable, single change in a parent will affect all of the children, this is a little bit time consuming. But you don't need to take any special efforts. In the second one, you need to take a special efforts. So this is not a widely adopted, but you need to decide as per your business need with which you should go. That completely depend on the number of children your component is having. Simple website you are building in Angular, go with the default. If the cascaded objects are there, many objects, object inside object, object inside object, object inside object, right? Go with the on push. But you need to have little extra efforts. Extra efforts are there. Right. So remember about the change detection strategies. By default is default. Right. So check related methods are going to be called after the change detection. I have checked everything. That is do check. Right. Add it and change it. ng on changes is going to be called each and every time input property would be getting changed, right? Then ng do check would be getting called after the change detection, then after content checked, and after view checked. Means whatever getting projected, if that is getting changed, this is going to be called. You'll get the event over here, right? And if I click on the OK, once again, on destroy would be getting called. If you want to show some dialogue, right? Before going from one page to another page, that means you are destroying, or not typical case. If some cards you are going to cross, there are some cards, shopping cards, you are clicking on the cross. Before clicking on the cross, you want to show the dialogue. This is the right place, on destroy. Getting that? So this is about what you can say life cycle. Right? Most of the time you need to use init. The on init function is that function which is going to be called right after constructor call. Until on init is getting called, your object is not the component. Until on init is getting called, your object is just plain object. When it calls the on init, that becomes actual component. It becomes what? Actual component. On init call will make your object as component. So if you write something, if you want to call something after the initialization of your input properties, in which method you will write? Constructor? No, constructor is the first thing, then on changes, and then your on init. So after initialization of your input properties, if you want to write something, on init would be the right place. So component specific things you want to do, not the object related things, you are going to write in on init. On init is related to the component and constructor is related to the object creation. Getting that?
Constructors for initializing of
Object, yeah. Nothing. Constructor is constructor, but life cycle begins from on init. Any questions you have on the life cycle? Okay.
use could
On init, right?
definitely happen use could
Not every time. It is not every time you use on init.
JavaScript component create on
That is the feature of your CLI. That already, but you can delete it that as well. And I want to initialize something which is more specific to the component, write it in on init. destroying, just I told you, showing the dialogue, destroy would be getting called. Right? On every change of an input property, you need to do something. Input property you need to do, input property change, you need to do something. Which method you will override? On changes. Right? So you need to depend on the case to case basis. Take an example of the progress bar. If progress is 30%, I need to show the dialogue. How do you do that?
That's where it comes.
On changes. And you'll check the value, previous value. If the previous value is 30%, show the dialogue. You are going beyond the budget.
Oh, yeah. In that case, that would be used.
Right?
For runtime.
Yes, many cases are there. So before what we do, whenever requirement comes to your screen, you immediately start coding. The first thing you need to stop, right a moment. The first thing, algorithm need to be defined on the paper. Right? I have these many things, I have these many things. I want to implement these things. Right? Little tasks you need to make first thing. Then per task, right? What features Angular support? What things I need to build on my own? This analysis need to be there. What we do, I have observed many people right away start the coding, and that will fail the project. So you need to fail on the paper. If you want to fail, fail fast. And you will fail fast on the paper only. Right?
Immediately don't design the classes.
No. Don't design, fail. 100% fail. And from there you cannot come back
Yeah.
from that point. Then there is a patchwork. Everything is a patchwork. If you have developed some architecture and that goes wrong, patch.
Patch framework.
Patch framework. Everything you need to patch. Algorithms need to be defined on the paper first. Your state chart diagrams play vital role. Right? The diagram, UMD, we don't do these things, right? Because our manager is asking, release it, release it, release it. So quality is getting compromised. So Agile says, do not compromise on the quality. Right? Quantity can be compromised. We can reduce the sprint.
But we cannot say to the client.
Yeah.
Only change is agile.
So everything is manageable. Right? Even the sprints are manageable. You need to speak.
Earlier we were sending 15 days in a month. As of now we are sending 7 days. Sometimes 4 times releases goes to the production.
Okay.
Without give it. Well, just give it to us.
Customer.
I will test it. It's urgent.
Okay.
You just fix changes. Just push on to the production. 4 times in a day on production. This for the McKinsey line. Super urgency.
Super urgency. Change it, store procedures on the live.
That's your customer that you told us last week.
Yes. That happens. You cannot avoid
It's
it.
a technocrat. They actually change the SKU.
Fine. So this is about what you can say life cycle.
Life cycle.
I'll push the code and we'll start with the services.
Yeah.
Or we need to stop.
Yeah, need to stop.
Enough for
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
We have download capacity. Stack overflow.
You can take a consent from everybody.
Life cycle and just hold on.
I'm saying सबका consent ले लो. किसी को service.
So I have observed these things. Means people are, whenever they are joining, they are in the too much rush. When we are complete, when we will complete, when we will complete. Right? I need to come. Everyone, many students, everyone asks, I need to complete in 1.5 months. I need to complete in, but what about content? I can complete in 2 days. 18 hours. But understanding is very important. So we think in a too much utilitarian way. So these things are not that easy. You need a practice and the grasping. Yes. So no matter how many times you are going to do the class, and if you not type a single line of code, you will not learn the Angular. That's the for sure. And it's not that difficult. The process is a little bit lengthy.
Yeah, as of now, it seems a little bit complex.
Complex.
As of now.
Okay.
Previous classes was fine, but that we have been towards in
I told you, whenever we are graduating towards the end, still lot many things I can tell on the life cycle. Lot many content is there in my head, but I'm not telling you. That will create your jumbling.
You have taken the right decision.
It will create the jumbling. Even on the components we can speak. There are entry components. But first you need to know what are the foundations of the component. Then entry components will come to the picture. Right. Fine. We'll call for the day. I'm ending the stream.